3 is evil Leafy? Yes, you heard me correctly. While this may sound like a nonsense crackpot theory upon first inspection, this idea surprisingly holds a lot of weight to it. I feared this theory of mine would be debunked before I could even release it to the public if 3 were to obtain a speaking role in Teapot 15, but fortunately none of the new 3 content we received contradicts my theory. In fact, I feel as if it has only further solidified it. With that being said, let me show you what I mean. Besides the pretty obvious similarity in color and screams, and an overall mysterious and eerie aura that clouds up the screen in a black vignette, you may assume these 2 characters share little to no other parallels, but that's where you'd be wrong. Let's delve deeper. Notice how they deliberately never bring up evil Leafy in modern-day BFDI, nor do they mention the reason she up and disappeared without a trace. I mean, we know very little about evil Leafy, a character we've known for over a decade, let alone 3. It's possible they left evil Leafy's disappearance unexplored temporarily as IDFB is planned to be picked up after the completion of BFDIA, and it's most likely to be explained in that season. But what if Teapot were to unleash the insane lore drop that is, the reason evil Leafy is no more is because of 4 himself, being the anti-hero that he is, rescued all of the contestants from evil Leafy's merciless torment just like he did with Black Hole right before he founded BFB, locking her up in the exit, a place meant to serve as an unescapable eternal prison essentially. Maybe that's why the exit is so heavily themed around mathematics. Okay, so that explains why 3 is in the exit, and why we never see evil Leafy in the flesh past IDFB excluding Teapot 15, but wait, why do they want to be locked up? Before I answer that question, let's take a quick detour. We know that 3 was sealed away by 4, but was 4 the one who also got rid of 1 too? Okay, their names really make this confusing, but regardless, I think the answer is yes. I mean, who else could and or would even pull off such a feat? But also I feel like 1 and 3 could have some history with each other, or are somehow connected because of this. It's kind of odd that 1 took Leafy specifically, but I suspect she did so with the intent of somehow summoning evil Leafy through Leafy to free 3 from the exit. I think I felt my tongue twist in real time. Anyways, 1 was literally seen inside the exit. I don't think it'd be far-fetched to assume she was there for 3. Oh, right. Back to the question I said I would answer. Why does 3 choose to remain locked up even when they had the chance to escape? Maybe they're that scared of 4 and the consequences that come from trying to escape. I mean, 4 does possess an almost infinite amount of abilities. Maybe we've yet to scratch the surface of what 4 is truly capable of. Maybe there's another side of him we've yet to see or be explored despite how fleshed out his character is. Perhaps this is why 4 is so heavily feared by the other numbers. Now I'm aware that the Algebraian subcount specials aren't canon and should be taken with a grain of salt, but we can assume this timeline still holds at least some plausibility to the main canon timeline. Besides, I feel like it's worth mentioning as it only supports my claim. This could be why 1 is targeting 2 specifically rather than 4, who's most likely more powerful. I know 4's power was never up for grabs like 2's is, but the fact that she hasn't even acknowledged 4 leads me to believe she already knows he's off the table, and that she knows better than to mess with the person that already beat her once. Maybe settling for 2, just to level the playing field with him a bit more so she can enact revenge before her reign over the BFDI universe as we know it. While you could argue that she's only going after 2's power as it was said to be limitless, I think the fact that 2 lacks the ability to recover, at least as far as we know, disproves that statement, which is a weird trait that 2 has. As recovery seems to be a skill that an Algebraian can easily learn given some practice, unless there's a deeper reason to why 2 can't or chooses not to recover people. Maybe it has something to do with the line of text atop the recovery center that is still yet to be revealed. Excuse my tangent, but I have even more dirt on evil Leafy and 3 being one in the same, believe it or not. This theory is a separate take from the last, but just as interesting. Also, if we head over to the 2 million sub special, It of course begins with 14 narrating the book about the division symbol and how its power was so great that the people in power, most likely referring to Foreignex, feared that it could be used against them, so they hid it away never to be seen again, which would make sense as to why they'd also want to contain 3 in a place never to be seen again. Except for in these episodes. Possibly a stretch if this all wasn't a stretch already, but a fun thought nonetheless. If you really want to get into the crackpot theory territory, let's take a look at IDFV1. More specifically, the scene where Golf Ball has a flashback to her traumatic memory about an unknown figure chasing her down through the museum to punish her. This might sound a bit too outlandish even for my standards, but listen, the FDI rarely has scenes that try and evoke such eeriness. In fact, I'm pretty sure we only really ever get that feel with Evil Leafy and 3, so if you think about it, it isn't too weird to associate that golf ball scene with those 2 characters straight away. Plus, we literally see Evil Leafy spawn in for like a frame right before the flashback. If we look at the other artifacts from the museum, we can find the edgy, yet iconic Stop Her artifact, subject of debate for many years, in reference to Evil Leafy, which was obviously spelled out using fruit punch and not blood. Who drew it, you may ask? Evil Leafy herself. Or I guess 3. Just hear me out on this. It could very well be a possibility that 3 isn't actually another villain like everyone imagined them to be. Maybe they wrote that message in order to warn the contestants about Evil Leafy, as it was stated by Tennis Ball that Evil Leafy's power seemed to be growing, probably exponentially. And with how unthreatening Evil Leafy's presence has become throughout post-hiatus BFDI, it'd be refreshing to have Evil Leafy pose as a legitimate threat in IDFB. If J&J were to go down this route, they could showcase some newfound abilities of which we've never seen displayed by her before, and no longer have her be some joke or obstacle, which could then segue into why they were ultimately finally vanquished/sealed away amid the season. This could explain why 3 was locked up. Willingly, they knew what would happen if they were to escape. It's for their own good as well as the good of the contestants, which is quite tragic actually. As for the reason no one really brings up Evil Leafy in modern time BFDI is because no one knows the true reason Evil Leafy stopped going after them after the events of the contestants, including the LL, moving from Yoyland to Northern Goiki in hopes of fleeing from Evil Leafy, which is the reason Donut says he's never visited Yoyland prior to Teapot 4. That's when 4, who is stalking the contestants, in pursuit of being their host, encounters Evil Leafy and saves the contestants. Unbeknownst to them all, except for Balloony for whatever reason, which is why only he knew about the exit and what it stood for, I guess he chose to stay quiet about the Evil Leafy stuff in order to avoid unnecessary distress or commotion. What would be an amazing idea for an episode is if we got to see Waffle, Toon, and Lego Brick make a return in modern-day Teapot after all these years, warning them about 3/Evil Leafy's return, or attempting to before they get captured by 1 for knowing too much and sent with the kidnapped group to where they discover more about the Algebralians' past from there. That's all the evidence I have on this theory. Let me know your thoughts on my take, or if anything in this video was inaccurate. I have had this on my mind ever since I saw that red hand in Teapot 11 and connected the dots from then on, surprised to find no one else sporting this theory. So I decided to release this due to the amount of 3 edging in the latest episode. Anyways, like and subscribe, or not.
Now, let's see what's further down the...